Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 10:20 a.m. on the 17th of October 2024. I tried to make this video a few times yesterday and my laptop kept flipping off the video, so I don't know if it's going to happen again. So I'm giving it another go. Sometimes you just have a glitch in the matrix, am I right? Anyway, I've decided to continue reading from the book of the First Love Stories by Diana Volkstein, and the story of today is Psyche and Eros. I've just washed my hair and my hair's still not really looking right. I don't know what to do about that. It's driving me a bit nuts. But anyway, hopefully it'll fluff up as it dries. Psyche and Eros, love's quest brings joy. Apuleius' novel The Golden Ass begins with the hero Lucius, a well-connected, rather superficial fellow who journeys to Thessaly hoping to learn the secrets and powers of magic. Attractive women throw themselves at him, and his voluptuous, somewhat dim-witted mistress helps him transform into an owl. Oh, here we go again. No, I don't want to do any quizzes for my computer. Go away. But by mistake, he is transformed into a donkey. As an ass, Lucius is tortured, burdened, and witnesses almost every form of human love and betrayal imaginable. In the end, he eats a rose, regains his human form, and chooses to undergo the arduous ritual of becoming a devotee of Isis and divine love. In one of Lucius's most frightening adventures, he is forced to carry a virgin bride to a robber's hideout. To quiet the terrified bride, an old hag tells her a fairy tale. In his form of an ass, Lucius overhears the tale of Psyche and Eros. In the west of Greece, there were a king and queen who had 3 beautiful daughters. The older 2 were lovely, and there are words to describe them. But because of the shortcomings of our human language, there are no words to describe the beauty of the youngest. Every day, citizens and strangers alike flocked in great numbers to the palace just to gaze at her. When they saw her, they were so overwhelmed by her beauty that they made the gesture of reverence reserved for the goddess of love herself. They pressed the forefinger and thumb of their right hand to their lips and threw her adoring kisses. Stories soon spread to the neighbouring cities and provinces. One story reported a new goddess born from the dark blue womb of the sea and nourished on the foam of the waves has in her great kindness taken on human form, so that all who wish to may gaze at her divinity. Another rumour claimed, due to the conjunction of the stars, Venus has had a second birth, this time from the earth, not the water, and this time, wonder of all wonders, the flowery virgin is a virgin. Every day the princess's fame travelled a little farther, so that stories of her beauty soon extended to far distant provinces and islands, causing men to make long journeys over land and sea in order to gaze at the great wonder of their age. No one sailed any more to Paphos or Cnidos or Cythera to visit the shrines of the goddess of love Venus's rites and ceremonies were neglected. Her couches were trampled on. No violets or roses garlanded her statues. Cold ash lay on her altars. The people turned from the goddess to the girl, and the princess's face became their shrine. Every morning, as the princess walked down the street, crowds would follow her, throwing violets and roses and shouting, "Venus, golden one, glorious one." When the true Venus realized that the honours due to her were being given to a mortal girl, she shook her head and raged aloud. "Is it possible that I, Mother of the universe, I who gave the spark of life to every living being, should be forgotten, while a mere mortal is worshipped in my name? Shall my name, which is registered in the divine book of the Muses, be defiled by earthly matters? Shall I be grateful for the remnants of worship that are left to me by a mortal who will someday die? Was that great contest in vain when Paris, whom Jupiter admires for his judgment, chose me over Hera and Athena as the most beautiful goddess? This girl, whoever she is, shall soon repent of having rejoiced over her illicit beauty, and shall rue the day she was ever called Venus." Venus sent for her winged son, Eros. Perhaps you've heard of the rascal? He's the one who, armed with flames and arrows, delights in causing scandals. At night he runs from household to household, disturbing the most respectable of marriages. He conscientiously does whatever he's not supposed to do, and yet he never seems to be punished. Not needing to instruct her son in the art of mischief, Venus nevertheless incited him by telling him the entire story of her outrage. Then she led him to the city where the princess lived and showed him the girl whose name was Psyche. Venus said, "I beg you, by the love you have for your mother, put your arrow in your bowstring, draw it back, and let it fly into the heart of that miserable girl, so that she falls passionately in love with the vilest, the lowest, and the most disgusting of all creatures, one that all the world would find dreadful. Do this for me, my sweet, and I will be avenged and most grateful." She kissed him for a long time with open lips, and then ran off to the sea, as you do. She danced across the waves, and under her rosy feet the tossing waters calmed. The surface of the sea became smooth, and as if sensing her wishes, the sea people appeared. The daughters of Nereus sang in chorus. With them came Portunus with his rough blue beard, and his wife Salacia, her bosom full of fish. Tiny Palamon rode on a dolphin, and troops of prancing tritons spread out across the ocean. One noisily blew on a conch shell. Another held a silk parasol over Venus's head to protect her from the fierce sun, and a third swam ahead holding up a mirror should Venus wish to admire herself. The others swam together under her chariot. Such was the band of attendants that accompanied Venus on her ocean voyage. But there were no such pleasures to delight the Princess Psyche. Although she was stared at and praised by all, no king or prince or even a commoner dared to ask her hand in marriage. Psyche was admired for her divine beauty in the way one might admire an exquisite marble statue. Her two older sisters, who were of moderate beauty, celebrated happy weddings and married kings of noble standing. But the virgin Psyche stayed at home and mourned her fate. She was miserable in body and spirit, and began to hate the beauty which gave others such delight. The father worried for his neglected daughter. He suspected the anger of the gods and journeyed to Miletus. Well, you know, whatever. To seek the advice of the oracle of Apollo. Outside the temple, he washed in a spring and sacrificed a goat, carefully starting with his right foot. He climbed the 13 steps of the temple. He gave the priest a petition which asked where a husband was to be found for his daughter. The priest descended the stairs of the dark, vaulted tunnel and gave the king's petition to the Pythia. The Pythia purified herself and came out into the sunlit courtyard. She chewed on laurel leaves, inhaled the vapours from the sacred well, and fell into a trance. The words she spoke in Greek were later translated into Latin, for which both the author of this tale and the king were grateful. King, bring your daughter to the mountain top. Dress her in funeral robes to meet her spouse. A bridegroom he is, but not of mortal seed. A winged creature, fierce and cruel, weakening all the world with his fire and sword. He causes fear in the court of Jupiter and terror in the Stygian shades. When he heard the words of the oracle, the once happy father sadly and reluctantly returned home. He told his wife the dreadful answer he had received, and the two mourned and wept for many days. At last the time came for the dreadful prophecy to be obeyed. A procession formed for Psyche's wedding. Torches burned with dark, sooty flames. Flutes did not play wedding tunes, but sad Lydian laments. The wedding song ended with loud bursts of sorrow, and the bride wiped her tears with her wedding veil. The citizens of the city, hello Charlie, suspended their affairs to share the grief of the king and queen. A day of public mourning was ordered. Now the necessity of obeying the oracle demanded that Psyche meet her fate. Once the wedding vows were completed, the entire population, in great grief, followed Psyche, who walked as if she were attending a funeral rather than a wedding rite. Suddenly, Psyche's parents refused to go on. They could not bear the thought of their daughter's dreaded encounter and tried to delay the procession, but Psyche urged them on, saying, "Why do you torment yourselves in your old age with incessant wailing, weakening your spirits, which are dearer to me than my own? Why do you harm the faces I love, filling your eyes with tears and pulling out your grey hairs? Why do you pound the breasts that nourish me? Too late you understand the deadly blows of jealousy. Long ago, when the people celebrated us with divine reverence and called me the new Venus, that was the moment you should have wept, for that was the moment I became as one who was dead. Now I understand clearly. I am to perish because of the slanderous use of Venus's name. Lead me on. I want to lie on the rock which holds my fate. I hasten to my happy wedding and to my bridegroom. Why should I delay? Why should I fear him who can, at his will, destroy all the world? With resolute step, Psyche rejoined the procession. The people left her at the appointed rock and started home in the darkness, with lowered heads, for their torches had been extinguished by their tears. The king and queen shut themselves in the palace. They closed the doors and windows and gave themselves up to unending grief. On the highest rock, Psyche lay waiting and trembling. After a while, she felt the soft, gentle west wind, Zephyrus. He rustled her skirts, growing stronger and stronger, until with a deep inhalation he lifted her up into the air and carried her gently down, down to a green valley of fragrant flowers. Psyche rested blissfully on a soft bed of tender grass. When she awoke, refreshed from her sweet sleep, she saw a dense grove of tall trees. In the middle of the grove was a fountain, and near the fountain a palace, one so magnificent that Psyche knew it could not have been made by mortal hands. From the very entrance, it seemed to be the lodging of a god. The panelled ceilings were carved with lemon wood and ivory. The pillars were golden, and the walls were embossed with silver engravings of wild animals which seemed to be running toward her as if to welcome her. Neither a man nor even a demigod, most likely only a god, could create such forms. The floor was a mosaic of precious gems, forming patterns that changed at every glance. Anyone who walked on such a floor would surely be blessed. As for the other parts of the palace, they seemed to be equally beautiful. The walls were inlaid with gold and shone with such radiance that it seemed the house created its own daylight, even when the sun did not shine. Hello, Charlie. Happy buddy. Every room and doorway was filled with light. The furniture was as magnificent as the house, and the palace could easily be taken for Jupiter's residence on earth. Drawn by such loveliness, Psyche timidly approached the doorway, and then, gathering confidence, she stepped over the threshold. The hallway lured her in, and she walked from room to room, admiring everything she saw, until she came to a storeroom filled with treasures. But what amazed her more than the countless treasures was that nowhere did she see a bolt or bar or guardian. As she was gazing about in pleasure, a voice suddenly spoke, as if responding to her thoughts. "My lady, why do you marvel? All that you see is yours. But you must be tired. Why not go to your bedroom and rest? And when you finish, a bath will be ready. We, your voices, are here to attend to your comfort, and afterwards to serve you a banquet fit for a queen." Psyche was grateful to whatever divine will was watching over her and protecting her. He followed the advice of the voice, and her fatigue soon slipped away with sleep and a refreshing bath. Psyche then noticed a semicircular table that was set for dinner, with a comfortable couch in front of it. Happily, she stretched out on it, and immediately food and wine were set before her. She saw no human, yet she heard voices, so she understood that the voices were the servants. After she had eaten, an invisible being sang, then another played the harp. A chorus of beautifully blended voices ended the evening's pleasures. With the coming of dusk, Psyche went back to her bedroom. As night approached, a pleasant sound came closer. It was the steps of her bridegroom. At that moment, Psyche began to shiver and tremble, for she was afraid for her maidenhood. She feared what she did not know. As she trembled, her unknown bridegroom slipped into her bed and made her his wife. Before dawn, he disappeared. Soon after he left, the voices entered her bedroom and reassured and comforted the young bride about the loss of her virginity. Her bridegroom came the next night and the next, and what began as a strange custom soon became a great pleasure. And so Psyche's life went on. At night her bridegroom visited her, and in the day the voices were her company. Meanwhile her parents were growing old with their constant grief and weeping. News of Psyche's sad fate and their parents' grief reached the two sisters, and they left their homes to console their parents. That night, Psyche's husband, whom she only knew from touch and hearing, warned her, "My sweet Psyche, my dear wife, fortune is cruel, and a terrible danger threatens you that you must be prepared to meet. Your two sisters, disturbed by the account of your death, have returned to look for you. They will soon go to the rock from which Eros carried you. If by chance you hear their cries, you must not answer, or even look up, for if you do, you will bring great sorrow to me and utter ruin to yourself." Psyche agreed. She promised she would do as her husband wished. But when he and the night had disappeared, she wept all the next day. She felt herself a prisoner in this beautiful palace, deprived of human conversation, unable to comfort her dear sisters, or even to look at them. All that day she did not eat or bathe or enjoy any entertainment. That night her husband came to bed earlier than usual. Taking her in his arms, he said, "Is this what you promised me? What shall I expect from you next? You have cried all day and all evening, and even as I hold you in my arms, you continue to weep. Very well, do as you wish. Follow your destructive desires. Unfortunately, you will remember my warnings when it will be too late to repent." Psyche entreated her husband. She threatened to take her life, She had to see her sisters, to comfort them, to speak with them. At last he consented to his bride's wishes, and even agreed to give her sisters gold and jewels. But he warned her over and over, to the point of frightening her. Do not let your sisters persuade you to try to find out my identity. If you do, you will fall from the height of your good fortune and out of my arms forever. Oh, no, no, she cried. I'd rather die 100 times than be without your sweet love-making. I do not know who you are, but I love you. I love you desperately. I love you as I love my own soul. I would not give you up for Eros himself, but please grant me one more wish and command your servant, the west wind, to carry my sisters to me as gently as he carried me to you. Psyche pressed her persuading lips on his. She murmured sweet sounds and wrapped her arms and legs more tightly around his, whispering, My sweet husband, you are Psyche's own soul. Coaxed by her caressing words, her husband felt his will drown under the force of her kisses. Then, at the approach of dawn, he disappeared. After several inquiries, the sisters were informed of the place where Psyche had been abandoned. They climbed the mountain, and when they reached the rock, they wept so loudly that the cliffs echoed with their wretched cries. Psyche, Psyche. The sounds of their grief reached Psyche in the valley below, and she ran from the palace and cried, Sisters, stop your wailing. Do not torment yourselves for no reason. The one for whom you mourn is alive. Dry your tears, and you will soon embrace her. Here comes my little one. Come, come, come on. Mama, you coming down? Psyche then alerted Zephyrus to her husband's commands, and he took a gentle breath and lightly carried the sisters to the valley. When the three sisters saw each other, there was a flurry of embraces and frenzied kisses. Once again they burst into tears, but this time their tears were tears of joy. Then Psyche said, Come into our house, dear sisters. Come inside and restore your tired spirits. You coming to Mama? No? Okay. Psyche showed them the luxuries of her golden palace and introduced them to the voices. Bath, she called, and a bath was soon ready. She does want to come to Mama. Let's get up. Come on, let's go. You coming? On my finger. I don't know. You coming or not? Are you going to tease me? Okay. If you're going to tease me, you can stay there. I can't stand people and birdies who tease. It's a waste of my time and energy. I've got better things to do. And anyway, a bath was soon ready. Food, wine, and a splendid dinner was laid on the table. The sisters ate and drank and looked about the palace, and a great envy arose in each of them. Then one of them began to press Psyche with questions. Sister, how did your husband come by such riches? Who is your husband? What does he look like? How does he treat you? Remembering her promise to her husband and not wanting to reveal their secret, Psyche invented, Oh, he's very handsome. He's a hunter with a soft, downy beard, and he wanders over the hills and countryside. A hunter, both sisters exclaimed. A hunter with a palace like this? Sensing their disbelief, Psyche was afraid that she might reveal more than she wanted, so she quickly went to the treasure chest and drew out necklaces and bracelets. She filled her sister's laps with jewels and summoned the west wind to carry her sisters back to the mountain. When the sisters arrived at the rock, they were in such a fury that they began to speak in the same moment. The older one said, "How stupid and cruel and unjust fortune has been to us. Is it fair that the three sisters should be given such different fates? You and I, who are the oldest, are banished from our homelands and married to foreign husbands who treat us like slaves, while she, who is the result of our mother's last weak effort at childbearing, is given riches beyond measure and a god for a husband. Why, she doesn't even know how to make use of such riches." "Sister, did you see what was in that palace? Dresses, jewels, gold, gold. Even the floor was set with gold. And if her husband is as handsome as she says, why, no woman on earth can be as happy as she. What's more, if his affection for her continues to grow, this godlike husband of hers might make her a goddess. She already acts as if she were one, ordering about her voices, commanding the wind." I'm having a little bit of a chuckle here because my Psyche referred to me as a goddess the other day, yesterday, half jokingly, of course. He stirs me up too. He's a wonderful man. He really is. As for me, it's nothing romantic. Like don't wish to infer that. I was just telling him how much I enjoy the Brooklyn Standard and how kind everyone's been to me. And he said they treat you like you're a goddess. So it was in that context. And you know the old saying, no one's indispensable, and what goes up often comes down. So I'm like amused by the idea that I might be a goddess, but I won't let it go to my head because Susie van der Kros, my first boss, taught me that. She said, always remember to remain humble, Tanya, because one minute you're riding high, next minute you're crushed and ground low, and unfortunately that's been my life always and forever. So yeah, I kind of have to laugh. I'm very well aware of how things go. But never in my life, in my entire life, certainly in the last 14 years of dancing out in the Brisbane music scene, have I been made so welcome and loved so wonderfully and wholesomely than I have been for the last 14 months at the Brooklyn Standard. So to the management and staff and regulars and the bands, I think you're wonderful, and I'm grateful and appreciative of you having included me so marvellously, even though I'm not actually a goddess. But shh, don't tell anyone. That young Nepalese last fortnight telling me I'm a fairy. I might be a fairy, but I would never ever aspire to be a goddess, because I don't want to inflame the furies of actual goddesses. As for me, says one of the sisters, my husband is older than father, balder than a pumpkin, as puny as a boy, and locks up every chest in the house with bolts and chains. "Oh, sister, what about me?" cried the younger. My husband is so doubled over with backaches, he hardly ever gets into my bed. I'm not a wife, I'm a nursemaid. I spend my day unnailing his twisted fingers and ruining my hands with putrid compresses. No, sister, you are too patient, too servile in the way you accept your situation. I will speak freely, for I believe in saying what I think. I cannot bear the good fortune of our sister, nor can I bear how arrogantly she behaved towards us, boasting and bragging as she showed us around, and then throwing us a few trinkets when she tired of us, and ordering the wind to sweep us away. No, I am not a woman drawing this very breath if I do not topple her from her great height. And if you are equally insulted, as you well should be, then let us work together to find a sure plan. We must not tell our parents or anyone else about what she has given us, nor should we tell anyone about her being alive or her riches. It is enough that we know. If we do not tell anyone that she is rich, she will not be rich. A person is only rich when others know about it. She will soon find out that we are not her servants, but her older sisters. Now, let us go back to our husbands and homes, and when we can think of a plan to humble her, we will meet again. The wicked sisters agreed. They hid the treasure Psyche had given them. They tore their hair. They mangled their miserable faces with grief. They let their eyes run with false tears and brought even more distress to their parents. Then they hurried to their homes, their minds scheming with thoughts to bring about the destruction of their innocent sister. Meanwhile, Psyche's unknown husband again warned her. "Oh, Psyche, do you not see the danger that awaits you? A perilous storm will soon be here, and if you do not prepare for it, it will carry you away. Those treacherous little she-wolves are plotting your destruction. They will urge you to see my face, but I have warned you. If you were to see it, you would lose me forever. If these hateful witches come to see you, as I know they will, you must not speak to them. And if you cannot do this because of your open and simple nature, then at least you must not listen to or answer any of their questions about me. This is most important, for soon we will have our own family. In your young womb, a child is growing. If you keep our secret, the child will be born a god. But if you betray our secret, the child will be born a mortal." Psyche was delighted at the thought of bearing a divine child, and thrilled with such an honour. She happily repeated to herself the joyful name, Mother. She counted the days as they came in, and the months as they went by, and since she was innocent, she marvelled that the loss of her maidenhood should cause her belly to swell to such a size. But now those revolting furies, breathing out serpentine slime, were again travelling to the palace. Once more Psyche's husband warned her. "Today is the last day. Those of your own sex and blood have taken up arms against you. They have broken camp, drawn the battle line, and sounded the bugle. Their swords are sharpened and pointed at your throat. A great disaster hovers near you. Have pity on yourself and on me. Keep our secret safe and protect us from the misfortune which threatens to ruin us. Refuse to listen to those wicked women who, with the hatred they bear you, do not deserve the name sister. Know how that feels? By the gods. Do not listen to their siren-like cries that will cause the rocks to echo with their false lamentations. Psyche burst into sobs and said, "Do you not trust me? Did I not prove my loyalty to you last time? I did not give away our secret before, nor will I do so tomorrow. I beg you, command the west wind to perform his duty as he did last time, as my consolation for not seeing you. I implore you, by your sweet curls, by your wonderful smell of cinnamon, by your soft, smooth cheeks, by your warm chest and face, which I shall know by the face of our child, grant me my wish. Let your Psyche, who is devoted to you, be happy, and I will not try to see your face, or be afraid of the dark shadows again. I will be content to be in your arms, for you are my light." Enchanted by her words and soft kisses, he wiped away her tears with his hair. He promised to grant her wishes and departed before dawn. Driven on by their carefully composed plans, the two sisters did not stop to see their parents, but went directly to the rock. Without waiting for the west wind, they rashly leapt from the summit. Zephyrus, although unwilling, obeyed his master's commands and arrived, panting, just in time to catch the sisters and carry them safely to the valley below. Immediately they rushed into the house, crying, "Sister, sister," and embraced their victim. Then, covering their treacherous desires with smiles, they fawned and said, "Oh, Psyche, you are no longer a slim girl, but a mother. What a joy for all our family! How delightful it will be for us to take care of your golden child. If he matches his parents in beauty, as he surely will, a new little Eros will be born." Taken in by their seeming affection, Psyche called for the delights of the palace to be prepared. Bath, food, harp, flutes, chorus. Although they saw no one, the sisters enjoyed these sweet serenades. Yet the honey-sweet softness of the songs did nothing to change their bitter plans for revenge. The sisters soon guided the conversation to their own ends. "Psyche," one said, "tell us about your husband." "Yes," the other said, "we want to know every detail. What kind of man is he? Where was he born? Who is his family?" Poor, simple Psyche. She had forgotten what she told them last time, so again she invented. "Well, he's a merchant from the next province. He's very rich, middle-aged, has grey in his hair." Suddenly she stopped abruptly and hurried to the treasure chest. She loaded presents into the arms of her sisters and had them carried away. As the west wind ferried them, they began to debate in mid-air. One said, "Sister, have you ever heard such outrageous lies? One minute her husband is a young man with a beard, the next minute he has white in his hair. Who is this man who dances so quickly into old age? Either she's lying, or she's never seen her husband. Whichever it is, we must remove her riches from her, as quickly as possible." "But sister," the other said, "if she has never seen her husband, It may be that she is married to a god, and the child she is bearing will be divine. If that is so, and she has slept with a god and is to become the mother of a god, I shall hang myself from the panelled ceiling. In the meantime, let us go to our parents and return in the morning with our plans firmly set in our minds. In a state of nerves, they spoke to her parents scornfully. They could not sleep all night, but tossed and turned because of their fury. As soon as morning came, they rushed to the rock, and by means of their usual escort, impetuously descended to the meadow. By pressing on their eyelids, they were able to force out a few tears. Then they spoke to Psyche and said, "O sister, you live in a state of bliss, for you are ignorant of the danger that threatens you. But we, who have made inquiries concerning your affairs, are in anguish about what we have discovered, and we can no longer conceal it from you. A huge, bloodthirsty snake with many coils, whose gluttony knows no bounds, secretly finds his pleasure with you at night. O Psyche, remember the oracle of Apollo that foretold that you would wed a cruel, fierce beast. Hunters and neighbours living nearby have reported seeing him returning in the evening from the pasture and driving his way toward the palace. They say he is indulging you, fattening you, until the time is ripe and your womb is full. Then he will devour both you and the child. Make up your mind, 'tis your choice. You can return to safety with us, or be buried in the entrails of a savage beast. But even if you choose to live here with your wild voices and indulge in secret bestial couplings, at least we, your sisters, have done our duty." Poor, simple Psyche. When she heard her sister's ghastly disclosure, she turned stiff with horror. The blood went out of her face. She gasped. She forgot all her husband's warnings and all her promises. Stuttering and faltering, she breathlessly said, "Oh yes, yes, dear sisters, it is right that you have persisted in your duty. In fact, I am afraid that those who told you such things have not lied. You see, I have never seen the face of my husband, nor do I know where he comes from. He speaks to me only at night and flees my bed before dawn." Sounds like my ex-Courtney. Oh, you never mind. You have to laugh. He turned out to be a monster too, though, in the end. Sad but true. Perhaps, yeah, you kind of have to laugh. I could write my own fairy stories based on my own love life alone, and it would be a bit like Psyche's in a way. Never mind, my darlings. Where were we? Fleeing my bed before dawn, that's right. Perhaps he is this dreadful beast that you describe, for whenever he comes to me at night, he insists that I must not try to see his face, and when I have questioned him, he has threatened me with dire warnings, and it's very painful to me that he's so afraid of the light. Yes, surely he is some kind of monster. Oh, sisters, what shall I do? Please advise me, otherwise all your care and kindness will have been in vain. Once the wicked women had opened the gates to Psyche's soul and seen her defences fall away, they pressed their advantage and openly assaulted her frightened spirit. One of them said, Because you are our own flesh and blood, it is our duty to forget all danger for your sake. After careful reflection, we have thought of a plan which you must follow exactly, for it is the only one that will lead to your safety. This is the plan. Sharpen a knife and hide it under the side of the bed where you usually sleep. Then get an oil lamp and hide it behind a curtain near your bed. After the beast has climbed into your bed and is sleeping soundly, slip out of your bed. On tiptoe, get the lamp from its hiding place. You will be able to carry out your heroic deed with the help of this light. Take the knife in your right hand, then strike with all your force and cut off the poisonous snake's head at its neck. We will be waiting nearby, and when we hear your signal, we will help you gather the treasures from this palace. Then we will find a true man for you, not a beast. When they saw that their words had inflamed the heart of their sister, and she was ready to carry out the deed, they fled. They were terrified to be near should such a disaster occur. The west wind carried them to the rock, and they hastened to their ships and sailed away as quickly as they could. Psyche was left alone, except for her rages which tormented her. All day her mind tossed back and forth like the waves of the sea. At first she was clear and determined, but soon she began to waver, distracted by the implications of what she was about to do. She delayed, she hurried, she dared, she feared, she despaired, she raged, and what was most curious was that in the same moment, in the same body, she hated the beast and she loved the husband. We've all been there, haven't we, sisters? As night approached, she made her decision and prepared the necessary equipment. In the darkness, her husband slipped into her bed, and they wrapped themselves in the combats of love. That means never mind, I don't want to have to make this age restriction, so I'll behave. Combats of love says it all though, darlings. Then she fell into a deep sleep. By nature, Psyche did not possess a particularly bold spirit or body, yet the cruelty of her fate hardened her. She took the lamp and seized the knife, but the moment the light shone on the bed, the mystery was revealed. Lying on the bed, in all his beauty, was the sweetest and gentlest of all creatures, Eros, the god of love. At the sight of him, the light of the lamp burned more brightly, and the knife dulled its edge in shame. Psyche was terrified. Pale and shaking, she fell to her knees. She tried to hide the knife by plunging it into her own heart, but the knife, fearful of such a crime, fell from her hands onto the floor. Then, despite her weakness and fear, her spirit revived when she gazed at Eros' divine beauty. His golden hair was still wet with nectar. His playful curls drifted across his rosy cheeks and milky white neck. They glowed with such splendour that the light of the lamp flickered in awe. On his shoulders, the flying god's dewy white wings sparkled with beauty, and although they were not in flight, the outermost feathers reverberated in continuous quivering. The rest of his body was so smooth and splendid that Venus herself would not have been ashamed to have brought such a child into the world. At the foot of the bed lay the weapons of the great god, his bow, quiver, and arrows. Psyche's insatiable curiosity impelled her to examine and touch each of her husband's weapons. She took an arrow from his quiver and, wishing to test its sharpness, pressed her thumb against it. Because her hand was trembling, she pierced her skin, and several drops of blood ran from her finger. So it was that, by her own will, yet unknowingly, Psyche fell in love with the god of love. Oh, can't think of a worse fate than that, my darlings. Burning with desire, only because gods of love are never faithful and never loyal, just saying. Burning with desire, she leaned over and kissed him impulsively, impetuously, with kiss after kiss after kiss, fearful he would waken before she had finished. Oh, bless. While the anguished and delighted Psyche hovered over him, the lamp she was holding, whether from treachery or jealousy or simply from desire to touch and kiss such a body, spurted a drop of boiling oil onto the right shoulder of the god. O rash, bold lamp! O paltry minister of love! How could you burn the god of fire? You, who were surely invented by some lover who wished to behold the sight of his beloved past the moment of darkness. Eros awoke and leapt out of bed in dreadful pain. When he saw his wife holding the lamp in her hand and the knife lying on the floor, he understood. Without a word, he spread his wings and flew into the air. Psyche caught hold of his right leg and held fast. With her weight dragging him, they flew into the cloudy regions. She held on until her strength gave out. Then she let go and fell to the ground, exhausted. Eros did not desert her as she lay on the ground. Let's see how many pages are left. He flew to the nearest cypress tree and, swaying from its top branches, reproached her. "Oh, most simple Psyche, why didn't you trust me, rather than obey the commands of my mother Venus, who ordered me to cause you to love and be bound in marriage to a wretched, worthless man? I flew from heaven to love you myself. Yes, I acted rashly. I, the famous archer, wounded myself with my own weapon so that my wife might take me for a monster and try to cut off my head with a knife, my head and eyes which once bore you so much love. Oh, Psyche, did I not try to warn you? Did I not plead with you to listen to me? Well, your other advisers will soon pay their penalty. As for you, you will be punished by my flight." With these words, he flew away. Psyche lay on the ground and let out dreadful cries as she watched her husband fly farther and farther away. There's a cloud in the east that looks a lot like a UFO that's got even its landing gear down, ready to land. How funny, but it's definitely a cloud. When she could no longer see him, she sprang up and threw herself into the river to end her life. But the waters of the river, fearful of the God of love, who can even burn waters, would not let her die. They lifted her up and carried her to the other shore. There, by chance, Pan, the shepherd god, was sitting on a flowering bank. He was caressing the mountain goddess, Echo, and teaching her to repeat soft notes on a reed pipe. Nearby, a flock of she-goats frolicked, feeding on the grass. Pan called softly to the girl, saying, "My dear child, although I am a countryman and a shepherd, I have not lived all these years without learning a sign or two. Some may call it divination. I say it is simply keeping one's eyes open. By your wavering step, your paleness, your tear-stained cheeks, your incessant sighs, and your sad eyes, I would suppose that you are desperately in love. Listen to me. Do not try to take your life by leaping from a cliff or in any other way. Put aside your grief and go to the great God of love. Although he is a spoiled, whimsical creature, you can woo him if you speak to him softly and gently and offer him your services and prayers." Gone very quiet, Charlie. Charlie! Very quiet. Hope she hasn't been eaten by a snake. I think I just need to keep an eye out. One moment. Where are you, Charlie? Where are you? Ah, I see you now. Okay. So the shepherd god spoke, but Psyche could not reply. All she could do was to bow and go on her way. Psyche wandered and did not know where she was going. Toward evening, she arrived a little bit on the slant here. She arrived at the city where the husband of one of her sisters was king. She asked to be announced to her sister, who received her at once. After they had exchanged embraces, the sister asked her the cause of her visit. Psyche said to her, "Do you remember the advice you gave me? You told me I should strike with a knife the miserable beast I slept with before he could devour me. Well, I followed your advice, but when I shone the light on my husband, I saw the most heavenly sight. It was Venus's son, Eros, who was sleeping quietly in my bed. At the sight of such a great god, I was both overjoyed and horrified, and while I stood there confused, the worst accident happened. Several drops of boiling oil spurted from the lamp and burned his shoulder. He awoke from his sleep in terrible pain, and when he saw me with the lamp and knife, he cursed me, saying, 'If that is your intention, go from my bed and take your things. I will marry your sister,' and he said your name. 'I will marry her in a proper wedding ceremony.' Then he ordered Zephyrus to carry me far from his palace." The sister could hardly wait for Psyche to finish speaking. Filled with raging lust and jealousy, she ran to her husband, made up some lie about the death of her parents, and quickly set sail. At the rock, although the wind was blowing in the opposite direction, she cried out, "Eros! Take me, I am yours. Take me, for I deserve it. Zephyrus, carry down your new mistress. Then, with a great leap, she threw herself toward the valley, but not even her corpse found a resting place. As she deserved, her body was smashed to pieces by the rocks and crags, and her entrails were scattered across the cliff, providing a feast for vultures and wild animals. The punishment of the next one was not long delayed. Psyche's wanderings led her to the palace of her other sister. With the same story, she deceived the sister, who also, eager to replace Psyche, rushed to the rock and called out, "Eros, take me, I am yours." Then she leapt from the rock and was met by the same fate. Psyche continued her wanderings. She wandered through many lands searching for Eros, not knowing that he was lying in his mother's bedroom, groaning in pain. A white bird, a kind of gull that skims over the waves, plunged into the waters to speak to Venus, who was bathing in the sea, as she often did, to renew her virginity. The bird twittered, "What a scandal! Your son is severely wounded and lies moaning in your golden bed. Gossip is spreading, and the insults to your family name are mounting. Because both of you are gone, he to his mountain harlot, and you to your seaside holiday. Pleasure, grace, and elegance have disappeared from the earth, while rudeness and vulgarity reign supreme. There is no longer any concern for marriage, friendship, or children. All relationships are in disorder, and if anyone makes a commitment to another person, he is regarded as acting in very poor taste." Before the meddlesome bird could go on, Venus, who was troubled by the abuse of her son's reputation, interrupted and asked, "Has my beardless, naive boy finally taken a mistress? Well, you seem to be the only one who has remained loyal to me. Tell me then, who is she? A nymph, a grace, an hour, one of the muses?" The bird needed little prompting. "No, my lady, not a nymph, or a grace, or an hour, or a muse." Oh, we do love the muses, although they work me to death, you understand. That's probably why we're having another spiralling under as we speak. Not breathing again in the night. Really, really, yes, really. But a human. She has fallen desperately in love with some girl. He has fallen desperately in love with some girl. And if I remember her name correctly, it is Psyche. It's funny, you know, because my nickname's Psychedelic Dreamer. Never mind. I'm not a fairy story. I'm a real woman with real heart and real mind, with body, soul and spirit, and integrity and courage, more courage than most mortal men I know. So, calm your farm, Psychedelic Dreamer. Just keep dancing and dreaming and living your very best life in your sacred space garden with the gods and the fairy realms and the muses. I mean, you kind of have to laugh. "Psyche," Venus shrieked, "my rival. Has he chosen to love my supplanter? If so, then I have become his procuress." Rising from the sea, Venus continued to rage as she returned to her golden room, where she found her son in bed, as the gull had reported. Pardon me. From the doorway, she spoke in the loudest voice she could command. What kind of son are you? Is this behaviour of yours appropriate to your birth and name? First you trample the orders of your mother, as if I were not your parent, and then, instead of tormenting my enemy with a horrific love, you caught her with puerile embraces, turning my enemy into my daughter-in-law. Trifler, panderer, do you imagine that you can do as you wish, because you are my only child and I am too old to have another? Well, not only can I have a more worthy child than you, but I shall adopt the son of one of my servants and give him your wings and torch and bow and arrows, all your playthings, which were not given to you for the purpose for which you have used them. You were improperly raised by your father. From your childhood, you've struck your elders, even your mother, shaming me by piercing me almost daily with your arrows. You show no fear of your brave, warlike stepfather, but incite my jealousy by happily toasting the young women he falls in love with. You shall soon repent of your sport and pay bitterly for this marriage. Then Venus spoke to herself, musing, now that I have been insulted, where shall I go? How shall I restrain this little lizard? Shall I ask help from my enemy, sobriety, whom I have so often offended with my wanton ways? What horror to have to converse with that unsophisticated boor! But vengeance is a great comfort. Yes, she is the one and none other whom I must summon. She will castigate my trifler, unstring his bow, take away his arrows and quiver, extinguish his torch, and restrain his body with other bitter remedies. That means he won't be able to get it. No Viagra in those days. Or maybe there was. Maybe there was another equivalent. Let me think that out again. Goddesses are capable of everything, you understand. When she had shaved off his golden locks, that I myself so elegantly arranged, and clipped his lovely wings, that I dyed from the milk of my breast, then I shall be appeased. Venus stormed out of the palace, full of bitterness, and met the two great goddesses, Ceres, the goddess of the harvest, and Juno, the goddess of marriage. When they saw Venus's fierce expression, they asked her what had happened to dim the charm of her shining eyes. I am glad you are here, Venus answered. You have come in time to ease the rage in my heart. I want you to help me to find that fugitive Psyche, for I am certain that you are not ignorant of my son's unspeakable deeds. Yes, yes, said the goddesses, who knew well what Venus was referring to and wanted to soothe her wrath. But what horrendous deed has he committed that you want to condemn his pleasure and to destroy the girl he loves? Is it a crime to court a pretty girl? Have you forgotten how old he is, or that he is a man? Perhaps you think of him as a boy because he is still so charming. As a mother and a woman of the world, why do you want to spy on him and to repress those excesses, those very inclinations that you yourself delight in? How can you incite desire in all hearts while you forbid its presence in your own home? Salient question that. How indeed? The goddesses defended Eros in this way because, although he was absent, they too feared his arrows. But Venus, enraged that her injuries were treated so lightly, turned from them abruptly and hastened toward the sea. Oh, the sea. Mama T could do with the sea right now. Meanwhile, Psyche wandered day and night seeking her husband. She hoped to appease his anger either by gentle words of love and flattery or by servile pleas for forgiveness. She saw a temple high on a wooded hill and thought, "How do I know this is not my husband's dwelling?" Eagerly, yet painfully, she climbed to the top of the mountain. Upon reaching the summit, she went directly to the shrine and saw corn sheaves, barley, and harvest implements, which had been abandoned by the farm labourers because of the heat and were scattered over the floor in disarray. Psyche carefully arranged everything in its proper place, hoping to gain the protection of whatever deity the temple belonged to. As she was diligently working, Ceres, whose temple it was, noticed her from a distance and called to her, "Psyche, poor Psyche, Venus is in a rage and is searching for you everywhere. With all the strength of her powers, she is seeking revenge. Why, then, are you looking after my affairs instead of concerning yourself with your own safety?" Psyche threw herself at the goddess's feet. Her hair streamed out on the floor. Her tears moistened the goddess's sandals. She pleaded with her, begging for protection. "Great, holy goddess, I implore you by the corn stalks in your hands, by your joyful harvest festivals, by the secrets in your baskets, by the winged chariots of your servant dragons, by the furrows of the Sicilian earth from which the chariot wheels of Pluto arose and carried off your daughter under the earth to a dark marriage, by Proserpine's torchlit return, and by the other secrets concealed at Eleusis and your Athenian temples. Help your suppliant. Let me hide just a few days under the sheaths of corn in your temple until the anger of Venus has subsided. I am so tired. Give me a moment of quiet to regain my strength." Ceres said, "Your tears and prayers touch me, and I wish I could help you, but I cannot go against my relatives, and I have been friends with Venus for years. You had better leave quickly and be glad I have not held you as a prisoner. Now go." Not expecting to have her hopes so quickly disappointed, Psyche started down the mountain, more miserable than before. As she walked, she saw in a valley another temple glimmering in a dark grove of trees. She went towards the temple, not wanting to overlook any deity who might offer her protection. She saw luxurious garments hanging on the branches of the trees and the doorposts of the temple with the name Juno embroidered on them. They were offerings to the goddess for the favours she had granted. Psyche knelt before the altar. Wiping away her tears, she held the warm altar and prayed, "O sister and wife of the great god Jupiter, If you are in Samos, whose ancient shrines exult in your birth and infancy, or in Carthage, where you are worshipped as the Virgin who drives across the heavens in her lion chariot, or in Argos, presiding over your renowned walls near the bank of Inachus, where you are celebrated as the wife of the Thunderer and the queen of the goddesses. Wherever you may be, you are worshipped in the east as Zygia, the goddess of marriage, and in the west as Lucina, the goddess of childbirth. For me, you are Juno, the deliverer, and can free me from my burdens. May you be Juno, the protectress for me, and care for me and my child, for we have wandered all these days and all these nights. They say you protect women such as I, who are with child and in great danger. Juno then appeared in her grandeur and majesty to Psyche and said, I wish I could favour your prayers, but it would not be proper for me to go against the will of Venus. She is my daughter-in-law, and I love her as my own daughter. Besides, I am forbidden by law to give refuge to a fugitive without the owner's consent. The second turning of fortune against her so terrified Psyche that she gave up her search for Eros and abandoned any hope for her own safety. Where can I find protection, she thought? Where can I find refuge, if even the goddesses, although they are willing, cannot help me? In which direction can I go that a trap is not waiting for me? Under what roof, in what shadow can I hide from the inescapable eyes of the great goddess? As she walked, she felt her destiny in her feet and said, Psyche, you must take courage. Seize your own manly spirit. There is no escape. Although it may be too late, go to Venus and humbly beg her forgiveness. Perhaps in her house, you will find your husband. So Psyche prepared to submit to her fate, even if it meant her death. Carefully she considered in her mind the first words she would say when she met Venus. I just had a funny thought, but I can't share it with you people of Earth. It was a funny thought indeed. Meanwhile, Venus had given up seeking vengeance on Earth and decided to appeal to the heavens. She ordered her chariot to be prepared. Her husband, Vulcan, had painstakingly carved this chariot from tiny gold filings and had presented it to Venus before their honeymoon. 4 white doves willingly came forward and offered their rainbow-coloured necks to be harnessed to the jewelled yoke. Sparrows followed the chariot, playing and chirping, announcing Venus's arrival. The clouds parted, the heavens opened with joy at Venus's appearance, and little singing birds showed no fear of either the eagles or the rapacious hawks. Venus drove directly to Jupiter's palace, where she formally asked permission to use the services of the great messenger, Mercury, for her purposes. Inflection means everything does. Jupiter nodded his azure blue brow in consent, and Mercury joined Venus in her chariot. As they descended from the heavens, she anxiously implored her Arcadian brother, "Dear brother, as you know, I have never undertaken anything of great importance without your help. Surely you must have heard that I have been searching for a long time for my lost fugitive. I need your assistance. I want you to make an announcement in every town that a reward will be given to anyone who finds her. You must describe her clearly and exactly in every public place, so that no one will be able to offer the excuse of harbouring her out of ignorance." Venus then presented Mercury with a long resume, which began with Psyche's name and continued with all pertinent details. Having done this, she returned home. It's a bit like hiring a private detective, isn't it? Mercury obediently flew from country to country and made his announcement. "Hear ye, hear ye! If anyone can seize in flight or reveal the hiding place of Venus's fugitive servant, whose name is Psyche, let that informant look for Mercury at Venus's sacred mountain, where there he will receive 7 kisses from Venus, and more than that, 1 sweet thrust of her honeyed tongue." Oh, scandal! At the thought of such a reward, great chivalry and desire were immediately incited in the hearts of all men. The news also ended Psyche's wavering. Psyche was about to enter the gates of Venus's palace when one of Venus's servants, whose name is Custom, recognized her and cried loudly as possible, "You wicked wretch! At last you acknowledge that you have a mistress, or do you pretend to be ignorant of how much trouble we have had in searching for you? I'm glad you've fallen into my hands and no one else's, for here you will be troubled no more with earthly disease. Now you are in hell. Now that you are in hell, you will pay for your arrogance." Custom seized Psyche by the hair and dragged her into the palace. Psyche struggled in vain. When Venus saw who was being led into the palace, she let out an hysterical laugh, the kind that often bursts out from angry people. She scratched behind her right ear where the nemesis of each person lives. Wait a minute, really? Lies, it says, not lives. Does my nemesis lie behind my right ear? It's usually my left ear where the demons speak into, is it not? Oh, depends if you're right-handed or left-handed, of course. But what if you're ambidextrous, darlings? Anyway, just a little bit of psychedelic dreamer humour for you there. Then she shouted, "So, you have deigned to visit your mother-in-law, or perhaps you have come to inflict further wounds on your husband, whose life is already endangered? Oh, do not worry. I will receive you as is proper. I will receive you as the good daughter-in-law that you are. Grief and anxiety, where are you, dear servants?" When they appeared, Venus said, "Take out a visitor and treat her properly." They led Psyche away, and following their mistress's commands, they whipped and flogged her, torturing her in the most extreme ways. Then they brought her back to Venus. Once again, Venus laughed harshly and cried, "Did you think you would get my pity because of your big belly? From this belly you would give us an illustrious offspring, turning me into a happy grandmother. Grandmother? At my age, shall I be delighted to be called a grandmother, and have the son of this disgusting slave called my grandson? Nonsense! Although my son enjoys his games, marriage is not permitted between a god and a mortal. Moreover, there were no witnesses, and the father of the bride did not give his consent. Therefore, even if we allow you to survive and to give birth, the child will be a bastard. Then Venus pounced on Psyche. She tore her clothes, she pulled her hair, she shook her back and forth violently, striking her again and again. Ugly, broken harlot, she shouted at her. Where is your beauty now? Who will love you now? Do you have any merit, any diligence, any endurance left? Well, we shall test your worth. Then she took great quantities of barley, millet, poppy, chickpeas, and beans, and threw them in a great heap on the floor. Separate this pile, she said, so that each seed is in its proper place by evening, at which time I will return to inspect your work. Giving the pile a quick kick, Venus left to attend a wedding feast. Psyche, it's an awful lot of punishments for someone that just had the great misfortune of falling in love with a god, isn't it? I mean, really, Venus, give over already. I know the feeling, babies. Psyche did not even stretch out her hand toward the pile of seeds, but sat there overcome, stupefied, silent. Then an ant, a tiny tiller of the field, appeared. He saw the enormity of the task and took pity on the wife of the great god, for he hated the cruelty of the mother-in-law. Running energetically to and fro, he summoned an army of neighbouring ants, calling to them, "Nimble ones, children of Mother Earth, the wife of the great god of love is in danger. Come quickly, let us help her." You can never tell who your true friends are in a crisis, am I right? Even a lowly ant can sometimes be a wondrous angel of good fortune. Mama T has spoken. Wave after wave from the six-legged nation came forward and speedily placed all the grains in their proper piles. Then they disappeared. At nightfall, flushed with wine and smelling of balsam, Venus returned from the feast, wreathed in gleaming roses. When she saw the perseverance that had gone into completing such a task, she said, "Not you, harlot. No, this task was not done by your hands, but by someone whom you lured into your service. Well, you shall both suffer for this." She threw Psyche a coarse crust of bread and went to her room. In another room in the same house, Eros was shut up, in part so he could not injure himself further, and in part so he could not meet his beloved. For the lovers, separated and yet together under one roof, the bitter night slowly passed. As dawn rode in, Venus called to Psyche and said, "Do you see the grove on the other side of the river? Sheep graze there, whose shining fleece is the colour of gold. Bring me their precious wool, however you can." Psyche set out willingly. She did not intend to follow Venus's commands, but rather to throw herself from the cliffs into the river and put an end to all her sufferings. Yet, as she came near the river, a soft breeze blew, and a green reed whispered to her, "Psyche, I know what sufferings you have endured, but do not pollute my waters with your death. Wait. If you cross the river at this hour, when the sun is in its full strength, the sheep, who have terrible tempers, will turn in fierce madness against you. They will gore you with their horns and attack you with their poisonous teeth. But if you wait until the heat of the day is past and the sheep are resting, lulled by the coolness of the afternoon breeze, then you can cross the river and hide behind the tall plane tree which drinks from the river, as I do. As soon as the sheep have stopped their fitful grazing and are calmly resting, you can gather their golden fleece, which you will find clinging to every bush and branch in the grove." Through the kindly reed's advice, Psyche easily accomplished her theft and brought Venus back an armful. Bye, Rati. See you next week. She's, where is she? She's in amongst the orchids. Oh, she's there. She's saying goodbye, like it looks like the Māori haka when she says goodbye. Bye. But Venus offered Psyche no warm response to the successful completion of her second task. Instead, she narrowed her eyebrows and, smiling bitterly, said, "I am not deceived. The secret author of this deed does not escape me. Your own prudence and courage will be tested with the next task." Oh, okay. Do you see the summit of that great mountain over there? Dark waves of water run from its peak into the river Styx. Take this crystal jar and fill it with those icy waters, then return to me immediately. As she handed Psyche the jar, she repeated her hideous threats. I've got such a crazy life, haven't I? Wild demon dancer by night and reader of fairy tales by day. Bye, my darling. Well, you have to laugh. It is kind of odd and comical. But I am blessed by the gods and I'm grateful for my lifestyle. As long as it keeps me safe and happy and maybe one day truly greatly loved. It is what it is, but let's not test the gods too much. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But when the Lord giveth back to me, he giveth me in abundance, my darlings, because I too have suffered for far, far too long. Blessed be the Holy One, the true Judge. What have you forgotten now, my darling? You don't want to leave me. You want to sit at my feet and hear the beautiful stories like a child. And one day you will tell me Indonesian fairy stories. Yes, because then I will sit at your feet like a child and delight. Well, it's fair, isn't it? Crisscross. Crisscross, as they say. Without the cross, you understand. This Jewish fairy, warrior goddess, psychedelic dreamer, and my beautiful Muslim lady We will not have the cross, but we will have the stories. But some of the Christian stories and parables are lovely too. Let's be fair. All knowledge is power, and all stories are wondrous. Goodbye, my darling. Travel safe. Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. I learnt that word. What does Alhamdulillah mean? Thank you, God. Yes. So there you go. Bye. See, I learn. I learn too. I always learn. I like to learn things. Be open to the multiverses. Across all dimensions and echelons. Across all heavens. We've lived in hell long enough, darlings. Let us rejoice in the seventh heavens, blessed by all the gods. I was going to say, the Lord taketh away, but I feel a great ingathering of my people, my tribe, of my beloved souls who see me in spite of my abject horror and torments and raise me up on their shoulders and hurl me back into the fray to fight another glorious day for my own healing and rejoicing and wildness and freedom and dance and deep, true, honouring love. So mote it be, with harm to none and competition from none, by the grace of all the gods. It is already done, my beloved ones. But where were we? Helps to be a little bit mad, you understand. But I'm not undoing that spell with madness. I said the other day I haven't done spells, and I haven't done spell on any specific person, or hemmed anyone down, or tied anyone down to my kangaroo sport. Ugh, hideous, that man was a pedophile. But you know what I'm saying. I'm keeping it open to all potentiates, as gifted and inspired and most beloved by all the gods, those who look at me with favour and show me mercy and compassion, lift me up from my gravel-rashed existence, as I said, high, high, high up on strong, manly, powerful shoulders, my beloved one who might love me one day. It is what it is. But we carry on with the story. Psyche hurried away, eager to end her miserable life. I know how she feels, darlings. It's a bit touch and go some days, even for Mama T. But it's not so bad. Look, I've got Charlie and the frangipani tree and beautiful souls who come to me happily and with great delight and sweetness in their soul. What more could one woman want? When she reached the first hill, she saw the impossibility of the task that was demanded of her. From a huge, inaccessible boulder, black waters gushed out of a cave and poured into a narrow hole that led into a channel which flowed directly into the earth. Wow, got lots of can you hear it? It's an unusual bird call, isn't it? Whole chorus went up. There it goes again. Sounds a bit like my king parrot visitor. A little bit, maybe. I love it when my king parrot comes to see me. I haven't seen him for about 6 months. Anyway, what can I do? He is wild and free, and I'm wild and free, and that is how it must always be. Never tame for Tanya. It's the equivalent of death to me. I think it is. Charlie, is that the king? Is our king here, Charlie? If it is, he'll come and see me because he loves me, that bird. He always comes to see me. Yes, he does. I've got videos on YouTube showing him visiting me. It's a gorgeous bird too. Anyway, where were we? Black waters gushing out of the cave into a narrow hole that led into a channel which flowed directly into the earth. Right. On either side of the hollow cave, two fierce, long-necked dragons with never-closing eyes guarded the waters. Never-closing eyes. Sounds a bit uncomfortable. The waters themselves spoke in their own protection, hissing, "Depart! What do you wish? Beware! Take care! Away! Death!" Psyche knew that there was no possibility that she could accomplish such a task. Not even the consolation that comes from tears was hers. She could not weep. She turned as still as stone. Her senses left her. Only her body remained. This is the equivalent of disassociation, people. You're going to psychologize and pathologize everything. It's a bit like that. Her grief did not escape the eye of kind Providence. Remembering his debt to Eros, who had brought Ganymede to heaven to become his cupbearer, Jupiter, who in Greek mythology is Zeus, sent his royal bird to earth. With widespread wings, the great eagle flew to the wife of the god of love and said, "Simple girl, how do you hope to steal or even touch a single drop of that awesome water? All the gods, even Jupiter, are terrified of the Stygian waters, as you mortals swear by the name of the gods you fear. The gods swear by the waters of the river Styx. Here, give me that jar." He grasped the jar, and with quickly beating wings dodged zigzag between the dragon's rows of savage teeth and three forked quivering tongues until he arrived at the waters. But the waters would not give themselves up to him until he lied to them and told them that he had come at Venus's command. I'm getting my hair done I think it's next Tuesday. Oh God, I can't wait. It just looks all kind of awful. That kind of black roots in the middle and a bit of fuzz and fluff. What am I going to do? I'm going out to this massive big 10th birthday party on Saturday and my hair looks like fucking shit. But what can I do, people of Earth? I'll have to walk in like I'm a queen and walk out like a queen and hope nobody notices that my hair looks awful. Oh, poor Mama too. What does my former friend Gail used to say though? It used to make me laugh. I'll give her this. This was very funny. Whenever I bemoaned the fact that my hair looked awful, and those days my entire being looked awful because I was on extremely heavy psych meds and I looked like a zombie and I shuffled like a zombie and I drooled like a zombie, and if it had gone on for much long, I'm sure body parts would have fallen off me like a zombie. Well, they kind of did, my uterus and later on my gallbladder, but I'm talking about, in zombie movies, how the arms fall off and the legs fall off and well, anyway, that's how I got around people, looking extremely ugly and deeply, deeply traumatized and very, very ill. And she would just turn to me lovingly and say, Don't worry, Tanya. No, no one's looking at the mantelpiece while they're stoking the fire. It must be an English expression, but anyway. I'd look at her and I'd think, you evil fucking cow. But I would laugh and laugh and laugh. Because that, my friends, is the power of my magic to heal myself from even my most toxic of friends, is laughter. Laughter cures most things, darling, except when I laugh too hard and literally takes my breath away and I almost die of not being able to breathe. But apart from that, laughter is the best medicine. He's not looking at the mantelpiece while he's stoking the fire. Well, no one's stoking my fire, babies, not for a very long time. So they're going to have to be stuck staring at the mantelpiece, dreaming the impossible dream while climbing every mountain. 'Cause fuck it all, am I right? Fuck it all. Not going to be used and abused or played for a fool by any mortal man. Probably not even a god. I'm done. I'm done, do you hear me? I'm done. And they laugh back because they know whenever I say I'm done, there's a new adventure about to unfurl for me that I really did not expect. Happens almost every time. Mama T is never truly done because the gods never give me a moment of respite. It's delightful sometimes. Other times it's very humbling and draining, but you get that. I stopped breathing 7 times an hour last night. The night before it was 4.4, which was an improvement, and the night before that 9.7. So I don't even know how I'm existing in this body, mind and spirit. It's just my willpower alone, which is a force to be reckoned with, and my mischief and delight in life, l'chaim, always and forever. Choose life, says she who's faced her own death many, many, many times. Anyway, where were we? Jupiter zigzagging between the dragon's rows of savage teeth and three-forked quivering tongues. Until he arrived at the waters. But the waters would not give themselves up to him until he lied to them and told them that he had come at Venus's command. Yes, we read that. He filled the jar and gave it to Psyche, who gratefully accepted it and quickly returned to Venus. Even then, the wrath of the offended goddess was not appeased. She became more menacing. She smiled at Psyche cruelly and threatened her with a further task, saying, "You have carried out my task so easily because you are a sorceress and a witch. But I have one more service to ask of you. Take this box, my puppet." She gave her Proserpine's box. "Carry it yourself to Pluto's dreaded dwelling. Give Proserpine the box and say, Venus asks you to fill this box with a little of your beauty. Not very much, just enough for one day. Unfortunately, she has used up her supply while caring for her sick son. Then return quickly, for I need it to dress tonight before I go to the theatre of the gods." Psyche knew that her end had come. The veil was lifted. She was being sent to her death. Who could deny it? She was being asked to travel on her own feet to the shades, to the lowest part of Tartarus. Well, the fastest, easiest way to reach hell was to climb the highest tower in town and jump to her death. Don't repeat these patterns, people of Earth. It's rather silly. It ain't over till it's over, and you won't know it's over till it's over, just saying. And suicide is neither painless, but it is most definitely permanent, my darlings. According to some traditions, we're forced to reincarnate over and over again, go through the same hells over and over again for eternity, without any respite or any remorse or any forgiveness by the gods. I'm not quite so sure I agree with that technically, having almost been there a few times, but you hear me, darlings. Don't throw away what is the most precious gift placed on this earth in this space-time continuum. You never know what talents you might discover about yourself. You never know what great loves might yet manifest for you. You never know what wealth you might somehow, by good favour or the grace of the gods or hard work or creativity, you might manifest for yourself. Never ever give up, says she who wants to give up too. So I'm being a hypocrite in this moment. But today is a beautiful day in my sacred space garden, reading you ancient Greek mythology. So there is that. And on we go, my darlings. We must complete this mission. But when Psyche arrived at the tower, she heard it speak and say, "Foolish one, why do you want to destroy yourself? Why do you collapse before this, your final task? Why indeed? If your spirit is separated from your body, you will go to the depths of Tartarus, but you will not return. Listen to me. Go to Taenarus, a well-known city, and Lacedaemon. It is not far from here. It borders on the desolate places. There you will find a hole, a breathing place for the god of the underworld. Go through this opening. In other words, get right up his right nostril, am I right? It will be dark and pathless. Trust yourself. It will lead to Tartarus. But do not go empty-handed. In each hand carry a honey barley cake, and in your mouth carry 2 coins. After you have travelled through the darkness a long way, you will meet a lame driver and a lame donkey carrying wood. The driver will ask you to give him some twigs that have fallen from his load, but you must not help him or answer. Pass by quickly. When you come to the river Styx, Charon, the ferryman, will ask to be paid. For a fee, maybe that's why they didn't take me the last time. I didn't have any silver coins on me. But I'm a training silversmith now. Babies, I'll be ready next time. Must carry a silver coin in my bag. It's kind of protection. But also, just in case, you never know when you might need it. They keep vomiting me back to earth, my ferrymen. It's a bit astonishing. I don't even know why that is. For your happy ever after, they yelled out. Okay, well, let us manifest it, with harm to none and competition from none. So it is done, my beautiful, courageous, beloved people of earth. Greed is everywhere, even among the dead. Neither Charon nor his great father Pluto will do anything without being paid. A poor man who dies needs travel money, and if by chance he does not have a coin in his hand, He will not be allowed to die. Give this disgusting old man one of the coins you are carrying, but let him take the coin with his own hand. I think they mean offer it out to him so that he takes it rather than you put it into his hands. While you are crossing the sluggish river, a corpse which is floating on the surface will raise his rotting hands and beg you to take him into the boat. But I warn you, pity is not permitted. Show him no pity. Interesting thought there about my drug-fucked new friend that wanted me to bring him to my home. It's cruel, isn't it? But it was a metaphor, and I was well aware of that too. Trust me on that one. A test by my angels. Did I pass? Did I fail? One can never know these things. Once you have crossed the river, you will see 3 old women who are weaving. They will beg you to help them. You must not touch their material. It is a trick from Venus, who wants you to let go of one of the barley cakes. This would be no small loss, for if you lose one, just one, it will be fatal. Without the second barley cake, you will not see the light of day again. After you pass these women, you will see a huge dog with 3 horrid heads, whose barking terrifies the dead, although he cannot harm them. That's Cerberus, my friends. He never sleeps. He sits at Proserpine's dark door and guards the empty house of Pluto. Throw him one of your barley cakes, and you can enter easily. Then you will meet Proserpine, who will receive you graciously. She will invite you to sit on pillows and will offer you fine food and drink. Sit on the ground and ask only for coarse bread. Then tell her why you have come, and she will give you what you want. On your way home, give the raging dog the other barley cake, and the greedy boatman the coin you have saved. Once you have crossed the river, you will see the dance of the constellations again. But one thing, I must warn you above all. Do not open or look into the box which you will carry, or be too curious about the hidden treasure of the divine beauty. And so the far-seeing tower advised Psyche through prophecy how she might complete her task. With a barley cake in each hand and 2 coins in her mouth, Psyche set out for Taenarus. She entered the breathing hole leading to the dark regions. Silently she passed the lame driver and donkey. She paid the ferryman, ignored the floating corpse, spurned the 3 weavers, appeased the horrid dog's rage with a honey barley cake, and entered the palace of Proserpine. She refused the soft cushion and tasty delicacies. She sat humbly on the floor and ate coarse bread. On Venus's behalf, she announced her errand. Proserpine secretly filled Venus's box and gave it back to Psyche, sealed. Psyche tricked the barking dog's rage with a second barley cake, gave the remaining coin to the ferryman, and returned from the underworld. Impressive, impressive. Once she was on earth again, and given thanks for the glorious light of day, although she was eager to complete her last task. She was suddenly seized by an overwhelming curiosity. Would I not be a foolish woman, she said to herself, to hold in my hands a box of divine beauty and not use the smallest amount to make myself more beautiful for my own lover? She lifted the cover of the box. No divine beauty awaited her. Instead, a death-like Stygian vapour poured over Psyche, enveloping her in a dense cloud of sleep. Psyche sank to the ground and lay there like a corpse. At that moment, Eros, whose wound had been healed, could no longer bear to be separated from Psyche. He flew through the highest window in the bedroom where he had been imprisoned. His wings, strengthened from their long rest, carried him swiftly to Psyche. He carefully wiped the cloud of sleep from her body and returned it to the box. Then, with a harmless prick of his arrow, he woke Psyche and said, "My love, again you almost perished because of your curiosity. But now take my mother, the box, and I will see to the rest." With these words, Eros flew away, and Psyche immediately brought Proserpine's gift to Venus. Utterly consumed with his passion, but fearing his mother's stern reproach, Eros fortified himself from the wine jar. Then he spread his wings and crossed the great expanse of heaven to plead his case before Jupiter. Jupiter stroked Eros's cheeks and kissed his hand and said, "My son and master, you have never treated me with the respect which is due to my position. Instead, whenever you have wanted to, you have shot your arrows into my heart, where the law and order of the universe lies. You have disgraced me on frequent occasions with earthly lust, which is contrary to Julian law and public order. You have injured my reputation with sordid love affairs, transforming my divine beauty into serpents, flames, wild beasts, birds, or bulls. Nevertheless, I will be moderate, for I remember nursing you on my knees. I will grant your request, but at the same time I warn you, do not forget those gods who can be envious because of the beauty of your wife, and take care that you find for those gods a similarly beautiful woman, and bring her to me as quickly as possible." Jupiter then ordered Mercury to announce to all the gods and goddesses that they were to appear in the theatre that night, and if they were absent, there would be a fine of 10,000 drachmas. This small warning allowed the theatre to be completely filled. After the roll was called and the names of the gods and goddesses were read from the Book of Muses, Jupiter spoke. "All of you are familiar with this rascal Eros. I need not inform you of his daily indiscretions and adulteries, which the time has come for his raging passions to be restrained, and his wildness fettered with the knot of wedlock. Gasped horror. Well, I only did it once, my darlings. I was only fooled once. He has chosen a girl and made her his wife. Let him now keep this girl, Psyche. Let him cherish her and delight in her now and always. Then Jupiter turned to Venus and said, My daughter, do not worry that your lineage or rank will be lessened because of a marriage to a mortal. I will arrange theirs to be a marriage of equals and join them together according to civil law. He then ordered Mercury to bring Psyche up to heaven. When she entered the theatre, Jupiter held up a goblet of ambrosia to Psyche and said, Drink, Psyche, and you shall become immortal. Eros will not leave your embrace, and for you both, your marriage will be eternal. A sumptuous wedding feast began. Jupiter embraced Juno, and the other gods and goddesses did the same. Ganymede, Jupiter's rustic cupbearer, poured Jupiter a cup of nectar. Bacchus served the others. Vulcan prepared the meal. Trying to remember who Vulcan is in the Greek counterpart. I think it's Hercules. The hours made all things glow with roses. The Graces scattered blossoms about the hall. Apollo took up his lyre and played so well that Venus danced with great delight. Then the Satyrs and Pan joined in on their pipes. So it was that Psyche married Eros, and when her time came, she bore a child, a little girl, and they named her Joy. Ah, joy. What joy? Such joy, such immense, wondrous joy, daughter of Psyche and Eros. Psyche's curiosity and intelligence, and Eros's defiance against his own mother, his passion for Psyche. Lot to unpack in that alone, is there not? And thus concludes today's reading of Even Date. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Rather tired now. Got to go out and seek out some more food because I didn't buy. I bought a little bit of food yesterday, but I didn't buy. I need a chicken to make soup with and other bits and bobs, and I'm not really wanting to do too much because I'm exhausted, and but I'm soul nourished from these beautiful love stories, and yes, grateful for all the gods and goddesses, the Holy One and all manifestations. Blessed be. Bye for now from Titania's realm at Sacred Space, and Queen Titania of the Forest Fae's name. I present you these wondrous stories, and May we all take joy and delight in all that is, was, and ever shall be. Amen. Basila. Bye for now.